So this is a recent work I made like 2 years ago. And it's about, I don't have the sizes up here, but this is about like 34 inches by 35 inches or so. And this is a portrait of a friend of mine. So beginning in like 2018 or so, I started asking queer friends of mine to pose nude for me. And then I would take photographs and draw people. And then these are screen prints on satin. So yeah, after I would sort of get people to sit and draw them, I would do all my color separations and layers and print them on fabric. And then cut them into these kind of banner shapes. So these are kind of sculptural, they're prints. They're kind of unique editions, so I'll make 2 or 3 of each one with like slight variations. And I was kind of like thinking a lot about, like I love subculture, like all kinds of subcultures. I love like reading books about subculture, looking at photo books, things like that. And I was sort of like in my, and have been like involved and around kind of like loosely like a queer punk community for like kind of like a lot of my adult life. And that sort of, has come with like a certain emphasis on, a DIY ethos and like kind of involvement in like radical social justice movements and like a love for pleasure seeking and gay hedonism through like gay party culture, and also like creating your own kind of worlds as well, where you're existing, in the margins of the kind of mainstream, or, in kind of opposition to that as well. And so I wanted to kind of start to draw friends that were iconic to me, I guess. And I was also thinking about these kind of like working class, like poor and working class traditions that different communities have, of kind of representing people that are like iconic to them or heroic, but sort of who are like unfamous and like unknown to outsiders. And that's sort of how I wanted to sort of portray, these friends of mine that were iconic to me but unknown to anyone outside of a specific kind of subcultural or like a specific world. Next slide. So they are sort of double-sided, if you will. They kind of hang in the middle of a space, like from the ceiling, with these like acrylic chains, and sometimes ropes. And they have the brass bar at the top, and then they have the portrait on one side, and then this is the back side of that previous slide. So there's like different kind of imagery on the back. Okay, next one. This is another friend of mine. This banner is like slightly bigger, so it's maybe about this long. And I kind of love like using all these different like materials as well, like fringe, and some of the edging and like the little witch fingers that kind of hang down the side, and glass beads. And I was like also thinking about this kind of commemorative vernacular that different kind of communities use, whether that's kind of marching bands or sort of high school gymnasiums, like kind of sports clubs, or also kind of like old school, like traditional like protest banners were like printed on fabric. So it's like thinking about this kind of commemorative vernacular, something you'd see in a veterans hall, for example, as well. So I wanted to kind of tap into that, and like kind of reference that commemorative aesthetic as well. That's like super vernacular. Okay, next one. And this is the back of that previous banner. And so some of them are more sort of detailed with the background imagery. than others. Yeah, and I'm sort of working towards, like right now at the Residency, I'm like doing drawings of, I have a whole backlog of photographs that I'm like working through to draw different friends, because it's a big process to get from the drawing to like do the color layers and then get the screen print right and, you know, sew the banner and all of that. But, so I'm sort of working towards an installation of like 30 or so of these portraits that will all hang in a space, that I'm sort of thinking about as a cross between like what you would see if you walk into the hallway of like a veterans hall with all the like memorabilia, and also maybe thinking about walking into, you know, a hallway that leads to a throne room. So I'm thinking about like heraldry as well, and creating a kind of queer heraldic tradition as well with these. Yeah, another one. And so yeah, this is kind of one way that I like installed them. This is in the Wasaya project in upstate New York. Yeah, and so I painted the walls this color as well. And yeah, sort of hang them at different levels and at different angles, so you can also like walk around the space. And they're not too high that you can't see them as well. And yeah, I'm also thinking about kind of reflecting this kind of world as well, where it's a sort of, it's a way of world making too, which is kind of what, you know, we all spend our time doing in this kind of like subculture. Okay, so now I've sort of concurrently to that, I've been working on another project where I'm super interested in popular culture, and in representation, queer representation in popular culture as well. So this on the right is a poster that I made for a screening of Brokeback Mountain that I did. And what I have been doing is organizing screenings of this film, which is directed by Ang Lee, made in 2005. And then at the screenings, I'll give out handkerchiefs to audience members, and after the screening, I ask people to write down the scenes that made them cry. And so that's the note paper that you see on the side. And I actually have some of the notes over here if people want to look at them afterwards. And so what this is a kind of, sort of a form of like sentimental collaboration. I call it, which is not a coin that I termed. I mean, not a word that I coined, is that it? Whatever the saying is. So, but yeah, it's this idea of sort of me as an artist collaborating with audience members. Because what I'm actually doing at the screenings and with all the notes is making like an artist book, which is this size, and this is like a little mock-up of it, which I can put on there afterwards as well. And I'm like illustrating all of the scenes in the film that made people cry. And as well as that, and so this is what the kind of book looks like. In addition to that as well, next slide, I am, with the handkerchiefs, I embroider the person's name who cried on there. And so, and these ones are framed, so that it's about, it becomes about sort of what popular culture and what sort of like a film that's such like a cultural touchstone, and kind of, that tells like a, kind of like the history of like queer people in a certain era. And so it sort of shows like what it means to audiences, because that film like meant a lot to people, you know, at the time, and now I would argue as well. And finally, these are a couple of mock-ups of pages from the book, the sort of facing pages. So the sort of setup is an illustration of the scene, and then a description of the scene, and it's kind of interspersed with flora that grows in Wyoming as well. So the film, of course, is set here. yeah, and I have a bunch of sort of mock-ups of the pages over there if people want to have a look at them as well.
So what method do you use during printmaking? Is it screen printing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I should have said. I didn't say. No, it's mostly screen printing that I use, and yeah. So these are all, and these specifically, these are all created using Rubylith stencils. Rubylith is like, I have a bit of it over here actually. So it's a material that you actually cut with an X-Acto knife, and then you expose this to a screen, and that's how you make your image. So it's you cut two Rubylith stencils to make like a 3-color image like that. So you overlap it in areas so that the darker color comes from the red and blue overlapping. Yeah, so it's just I don't know, it's like a nerdy thing, but it's like fun. It's really meditative to cut this, and it's fun because it gives a really sharp graphic line as well.
Wait, you have to cut all around like those flowers?
Yeah, so it takes a long time.
You make your own banners.
I do, yeah.
Which I like the variations in them.
Oh, thank you, yeah.
It gives you another outlet for the way you want to frame it.
Yeah, I have like control over the
Different
framing.
fringe, different colors.
Yeah, different lengths, and yeah.
What was your decision process on including the witch's fingers hanging on either side of the plant?
I think that I love them because I just think they're cool, and I love Halloween. But also that kind of project is also like about love for queer and trans bodies, and the body is a marker of difference, the body is a marker of desire, and that's kind of these things that separate queer people out. And so I sort of wanted to use something that was like of the body as well for those. Yeah.
And I didn't hear the question, but I was just noticing in the first banner, the gentleman had a lot of images, whatever, and I noticed you have some, and the woman had others. Are those unique to the individual's portraits, and did you interview them to get those, or you just kind of put them on there?
No, all of the people have those tattoos. Yeah, so that's like another kind of marker of like subculture as well. And you can sort of read different themes through them, I think, and start to see people as a community.